ever heard that phrase? Has nothing to do with any terrorist group. Isis was actually a beautiful female superhero of the 1970s, and she happens to have her own claim to fame when it comes to TV history. Isis was the first ever female superhero to star in her own weekly live-action American TV series. Wow, you would have thought that that might have been Linda Carter as Wonder Woman. Well, it almost was. Isis actually beat her to the punch 2 months earlier in 1975. Wonder Woman debuted in November 1975, and Isis debuted a couple months before. Let's look it up here. In the episode guide. The Lights of Mystery Mountain was the episode. It was September 6, 1975. It was Saturday morning. It was live action. Oh, it was so wonderful. I remember watching that very first episode, and I was just in love with this character thereafter. So it ran, the original episode, September 6, 1975, for about a year and a half, and then continued in reruns and syndication and whatnot. But the last original episode to air, let's find out. There was a two-parter. It was October 23rd, 1976, and the first part was Now You See It, and the second part was Now You Don't. This was the third and final appearance of Captain Marvel on the Isis show, because Isis was created as sort of a female counterpart to the Captain Marvel or Shazam character, which had been on the air for the previous TV season, had been on the air for about a year when Isis was created specifically for this half-hour live-action Saturday morning TV show. And so Shazam made some appearances on the Isis show, and Isis made some appearances on the Shazam show as well. They were companion series. And this, by the way, is my Super Chicks guide to both of these lovely ladies that I love and remember so well from my childhood. But here she is, Mego's interpretation of this Isis character created for that TV show that later made her way into comics, and we'll look at those in a second because I want to show you a lot of stuff today. This might be my only episode for Isis on Terrific TV Toys because this merchandise is not easy to find. There was not a lot released for this season and a half worth of episodes, and what was released is not easy to find out there. I really never see it at the toy shows that I go to. You can find it on sites like eBay occasionally, but this gal right here, she goes for quite a lot as a Mego. I have no idea what was paid for this one. It was procured by a couple special people in my life. One of them does not use the internet, so the other one found it, probably on eBay, and then the first one gave it to me for Christmas or my birthday out of the box, which is how I love a figure like this, because if she would have come in her original packaging, I would have been tempted to never open her, so I'm really glad that she was a loose figure, as they say, so now I can really take a look at her and play with her like I'm a little girl again, because this is one that I really wanted when I was a little girl. Probably the reason that I did not get this, although I have the Supergirl, Batgirl, Wonder Woman, Catwoman Megos that you'll see in earlier episodes of Terrific TV Toys. In fact, I think that was the first 4 episodes of this series ever a few years ago where I focused on those 4 lovely Mego ladies. Probably the reason I did not get this one is she appears to have been a Montgomery Ward's exclusive. Using this guide, one of the other things I'll show you today, and this is a book that I used in the earlier episodes too. It's Benjamin Holcomb's Mego 8-inch Superheroes, World's Greatest Toys, and they've got Isis profiled here, and it shows here in an ad that it says exclusive at Montgomery Ward's, $3.69. So while my mom may have wandered in there now and then, I don't think she shopped at Montgomery Ward's a lot, so I think that's probably why I wasn't able to get this one. This figure was released in, let me double check it here in his index at the front. I think it was, yeah, 1976 is when Isis came out, and you'll see great pictures of her in this little chapter on her detailing the different aspects of her costuming. And I will also point out too, as I've done in the past, a really great guide to Mego figures, megomuseum.com. They've got the page that details this Isis figure as well, giving a little introduction, showing the packaging, because she was packaged on the card, and then she was packaged in a window box, and then talking about the different parts of her costume, even the underwear, which evidently was the same kind of underwear as the Dorothy from the Wizard of Oz Mego, which I have downstairs, and maybe I'll profile in some future offshoot of this series. I've got almost the whole Wizard of Oz Mego line from my childhood, but same underwear on Isis as on Dorothy, and it's this cute little underwear, pardon me, with lace trim. So my Isis Mego is fully intact. The only sort of wear I will point out on her is on her collar and her belt. There was some gold there that has worn away. You can see there's a little bit of it still in parts of this rubbery belt and collar, but there was more gold originally, which you can see in these pictures. So that has worn off a little bit in my Mego. Besides that, she's really in good shape. She's got both of her bracelets, which are kind of bric-a-brac embroidered cloth cuffs here, and a couple snaps in the back, and her imprint on her head. It says 1976 Filmation Associates, Filmation being the company behind the TV shows Shazam and The Secrets of Isis. And then she's got her Mego imprint here with the year, Mego Corp, MCMLXXII. So that would be 77, right? Yeah, something like that. And evidently, for her face, they used, or for her head, they used a Wonder Woman head on her, which you can see the similarities. On mine, I'm picking up, like, and I don't know if this camera is going to show you, but there's like, it seems like more rouge on her cheeks on my Mego. But this evidently was a Wonder Woman head that they used, and with the black hair. And I read in one of these sources, either the book or the Mego Museum website, that they originally had planned to use the likeness of the actress, Joanna Cameron, but then they switched gears and ended up using the Wonder Woman head, which is interesting. Another thing I will note about her costuming, while these boots are wonderful and they're a great touch to this Egyptian-inspired outfit, they are not fitting with the TV show. And you remember, if you watch the TV show, that Isis wore little brown, sort of mid-calf, what would be called go-go boots with very high heels, like a high stacked heel on them, depending on what shot you were looking at. If it was a shot that showed her like in a lot of action or running, jumping, whatever, they might not have the heel on them. They might have been more flat, kind of like what they did with Wonder Woman. You know, they would show her sometimes with flat boot if she was doing a lot of action, and sometimes with that heel. But Isis wore those brown mid-calf sort of go-go boots, and this figure wears like a soft, rubbery, interlaced boot treatment here, unique to this figure. I don't think you'll see this on any other Mego figure. So yeah, she is just lovely, and I can brush her hair because it's in pretty good condition. Yeah, just like that Wonder Woman that you saw in an earlier episode of Terrific TV Toys. We love to brush her hair. It's just so nice. So I'm really happy with this Mego. She's in, like I said, good condition. The dress is a little bit of dirt here and there, maybe a mark or two here and there on her legs. I do see a strange yellow striping effect on the front of her legs that I'm assuming is as the plastic has aged a little bit. Other than that, she is just wonderful. So yeah, you see pictures here of her and all different angles and poses, and then her packaging here. There's the card. There's the image of Joanna Cameron, who was such a sweet gal. She was kind enough to call me when I was researching the book, and we chatted for quite a while. And by choice, she lives out of the limelight these days. She's in hotel management, but just a very nice and sweet and gentle seeming human being. It was so great to talk with her because I idolized her so much when I watched that TV show. Oh my word, did I love that TV show. I so wanted to be Isis. I literally wanted to get a white tennis dress like this and make it into an Isis costume, which I have seen done. You know, you don't often see Isis cosplay, but as of the time that I'm shooting this, I just went to a free comic book day at a local comic shop, and there was an Isis cosplayer there. There was only 2 people in costume, and one of them was Isis. Do you know how unusual that is? And I'm going to show you a picture of that, too, as part of this episode. And then my friend Colleen has an Isis costume that she went to great length to put together. And it's very nice. And I have a, actually, I think there's an image of it, a couple images of it I can show you real quick in the book, because we talked about her experiences with putting. Cosplay is not as easy as it looks. It's really a labor of love. But if you do it, I think it's very rewarding. It's fun, you know, to go to Comic-Con or whatever kind of show and show off an outfit and kind of dream. You know, you're really dreaming that you're that character, especially if this is a character that you watched as a kid. Okay. I don't think I'm seeing it now. I just saw it a moment ago when I was thumbing through this book. Oh, there she is. Yeah. There's Colleen with a backdrop added in by our friend Robert. The background of the Sphinx. Colleen in her outfit. So cool. So, all right. Let's look at another thing here. Isis Comics. Now, as I mentioned, Isis was a character created specifically for the TV show, which is not always the common practice. Most of the time you would think they're a comic book character that then is made into a TV show, but she was the opposite. Her first comic book appearance was number 25 of the Shazam comic by DC, and this was September-October 1976. And just like Shazam was sort of a launching point for her on television, also in the comics that was the case. And you can see both of those Saturday morning TV shows promoted here on the masthead of this comic. And then she got her own comic. This is issue number 1. Now in her own magazine, TV's top heroine battles her deadliest foe. And this is the mighty Isis up against the evil magic of Scarab, and this was October, November 1976, and you see the character there. Oh, mighty Isis making her transformation. There were a few deviations in the comic books, and there was only a few issues. I think there were 8 issues of the comics, but there were just a few deviations. And a couple of those I'll mention. The principal at the school were Andrea Thomas. Andrea Thomas is the alter ego of Isis, worked as a school teacher. And the principal at her school, Mr. Barnes or Dr. Barnes, on the TV show, he was played by a black gentleman. And in the comics, he was black at one point, and then he was white at one point, which is a little weird to switch that up. And then also there was a teacher's assistant, Cindy Lee, that was featured prominently in the first season of the show, played by Joanna Pang Atkins in Nowadays, who was also kind enough to talk to me for the book. And she was sort of the star pupil or the teacher's assistant who hung out with Andrea Thomas and her colleague Rick Mason at the school a lot. And in the comics, she hit on Mr. Mason, her teacher. So that was a little strange, something that they did not do in the TV show. But they did in the comics. And there were probably other differences too you could take a look at. Like the comics seem to, I don't know, I mean, you can tell me your impression if you found it differently, but I felt like in the comics they seemed to make more of a difference in the Isis character and the Andrea Thomas character. It's like they were two separate human beings a little more clearly in the comic books than on the TV show. On the TV show, she would transform into Isis, and in the comic books, it just seemed like the two identities were a little more separate people, if that makes sense. And Isis was not a character that had an origin episode in her TV show. As a lot of superheroes, you'll find that there's an origin episode to start things off, or maybe there'll be a flashback later in the series to the origin of the character. She did not have that. In the TV series, there was in the opening, like if you go on YouTube, you can watch this, or else the DVDs. The DVD set for Isis has been out for a number of years, and I highly recommend it because it's loaded with features. It's really a good DVD set. It includes all of the scripts of the episodes, which is a fabulous thing. But if you go on YouTube and watch the intro for Isis, you'll see that there's a little bit of explanation at the beginning of each episode that Andrea Thomas, the school teacher, was overseas in the Middle East somewhere, Egypt, whatever, at an archaeological dig, and she discovers this amulet. And with it, she inadvertently finds that she can transform into this ancient Egyptian goddess of Isis, who becomes a superhero who rights the wrongs that she sees around her. And since this was a Saturday morning TV show for kids, a lot of those wrongs were not hardened crimes. Those were not like, axe murderers and serial killers. But these were focused a lot around high schoolers, the high school where Andrea Thomas worked, and kids cheating at school or stealing or something like that. Something that the kids watching at the time, like me, could relate to. So, like I said, a show for kids. So yeah, here you'll see more of her adventures. Almighty Isis. Oh, we love that. So yeah, fun comics from the original series that did not run very long for DC Comics, but you can find them places like eBay. Now later on, the Isis character, not exactly the same character, maybe reinterpreted, you would say, in later comics, and this is Image, producing The Legend of Isis, which you can see has a lot of similarities with the character from the TV show in those early comics. And then you see these Blue Water comics with The Legend of Isis again. Wow, bare midriff. And they had their own sort of interpretation. And there's at least one other besides that, I believe, from DC Comics that takes that character and gives her a little twist again. Keep things fresh and relevant. But going back to the original, oh, I just loved her so much. One of the heroes of my childhood, and so excited I am to these days own a doll, a figure that I had wanted so much as a little girl, and she is just beautiful. And so thank you for traveling back in time with me once again here on Terrific TV Toys, and stay tuned because we'll be looking at more great stuff in the weeks and months ahead.